Hello, Blue Ash Elementary friends. My name is Sam Bloom, and I'm the children's librarian at the Blue Ash Public Library. Very excited to be part of your One Book, One School. And so I'm going to be reading Chapter 11, Guests. Later that morning, Murray rubbed his eyes, stretched his wings, and gave a giant yawn. Top, Bottom, and Sparrow were all sleeping soundly against him, and Kona was coming down the stairs. Murray grinned and waved at the dog. "Say, Kona, what's for breakfast?" "Breakfast?" said the dog. "You want breakfast?" Murray nodded. "Murray, when I got back from Gooseberry Park this morning at 6, you ate a whole bag of Fritos, a box of Ritz crackers, a 16-ounce package of provolone cheese, and an orange." "I ate an orange?" Murray asked. "It's only 10. How in the world can you still be hungry?" said the dog. "I never eat oranges," Murray said. "How can you even move?" Kona asked. "They make me break out," said the bat. Murray looked down at the pile of sleeping babies. "Hi, gang," he said. "Want a Pop-Tart?" "Just wait here," said Kona. "I'll bring something down soon. The pudding cups seemed to be all right for the babies last night, so I'll try to steal another one for them. But you have to stay here and keep quiet, Murray. We can't let Professor Albert find you." "Sure," answered Murray cheerfully. "No problem, but what are my chances of getting a Mars bar?" "Just stay," said Kona, disappearing back up the stairs. Murray sighed. He looked all around the basement. Pipes. Wires. What to do? Suddenly the sound of a television show came drifting down. "Jeopardy!" cried Murray. "My favorite!" He jumped out of the box, ready to dash upstairs. Then he remembered Kona's instruction. Stay. Murray walked in circles around and around the box, hearing the familiar theme song float down from above. "Oh, oh, 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 oh," said Murray, trying hard to stay, trying really hard to stay. "But Alex Trebek is my idol," he wailed, and flum, 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 he was on his way. The basement steps led to the kitchen. Murray flew in and, hiding inside a china cabinet, poked his head out and looked toward the living room. Professor Albert was watching television and eating a Danish. Kona sat beside him, looking rather impatient and glancing often toward the basement. Kona didn't see Murray in the cabinet. "And now we'll begin our round of Double Jeopardy," said Alex Trebek. Murray sighed with pleasure and settled down to watch. So here's Murray, hanging out, trying to impersonate a teacup from the looks of things. Let's see if he can get away with it. Soon, however, the sight and smell of Professor Albert's Danish was just too much for the tiny bat. He was hungry. He needed breakfast. Murray's nose went up in the air, sniffing, sniffing. Said the little bat to himself. "Now where would a professor keep a Danish?" He flew to the top of the cabinet and looked out over the confusion of Professor Albert's kitchen counters. A bottle of vitamin C, bottle of vitamin A, bottle of vitamin E. Gee, I'm watering at the mouth. His eyes searched a different counter. Wheat germ, olive oil, soybean curd. Ugh, gross. Maple granola, Oreos, lima beans. Oreos! Murray jumped so hard he hit his head on the ceiling. Thump! In the living room, Kona pricked up his ears. The dog looked toward the kitchen and saw Murray hopping up and down on top of the china cabinet, waving to him and pointing to something below. Kona nearly fainted. He shook his head fiercely at Murray. The bat mouthed some words to him. "Greeny center," was all Kona could make out. The Labrador frowned and firmly shook his head again. He had to wait for Professor Albert to take a morning nap before carrying any more food to the basement. The professor would likely be home all day with the ice outside still so thick. They were lucky even to have the electricity back on. And Murray was supposed to be staying in the basement, but there he was, bouncing like a ball on the china cabinet. Murray had to behave. Kona vigorously shook his head at the bat again. A flea, Kona? The professor asked, putting down his Danish and rubbing Kona's ears. No, just a pest, the Labrador said to himself. Back in the kitchen, Murray threw up his wings in exasperation. A whole bag of Oreos in the kitchen, and the dog only wants his ears scratched. Domestic animals, who can figure 'em? Flum. Murray dropped onto the kitchen counter. Just then Professor Albert rose and said something about needing some butter. Uh-oh, said Murray, who was just getting to his first creamy center. Professor Albert started for the kitchen. Double uh-oh, Murray said again, stuffing the Oreo in his mouth and looking for a place to hide. The professor took a few more steps toward the kitchen, but before he could get there, crash! What? The professor spun around. On the living room floor, Professor Albert's Chinese ginger jar lamp lay in 100 pieces. Kona sat very still and wagged his tail. Just a bit. Murray seized his opportunity. The cookie still in his mouth, he grabbed 2 more with his feet and flew down the basement steps. That's a pretty good way of making off with some Oreos there. Back in the living room, Professor Albert was saying that he didn't understand how a lamp could just knock itself off a table, and why did he keep thinking he heard a bird in the house, and really, weren't the past 24 hours the strangest anyone had ever seen? Kona, glancing over at the sleeping Gwendolyn, tried to wipe the guilty look off his face. He could not have agreed more with the old professor. And that's the end of chapter 11. Enjoy the rest of the book.